Welcome back. A joint standing committee on intelligence report has found that both the Inspector General for Intelligence and the SAPS Crime Intelligence has not complied with laws. Some of the failures are as a result of inadequate regulations because of internal policies that are outdated. We speak to Professor Anthoni van Nieuwkerk, who's an associate professor at the School of Governance at Wits University. Professor, thank you so much for joining us this Friday evening. Tell us a little bit more about this non-compliance by the State Security Agency that was found in this report.
Good evening, Masa. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm based at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs.
Apologies.
No problem. No problem. I want to thanks for the invitation. It's important for us to understand that this is a report produced by the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence in our Parliament, in the National Assembly. And it's an annual report. And what they do is they investigate the ability of our security sector, and in particular, defense intelligence, crime intelligence, and civilian intelligence, to adhere to the rules of the game in terms of accountability and oversight. So the first thing I want to say is, in our democracy, this committee has released a report which you and I and the public can read. It's fairly easily accessible. And that is quite a significant thing to do, is for a committee of parliament to say, when it comes to regulating our intelligence services, whether it's police or defense or civilian intelligence, here is how they do it, here is what we found. And in fact, they make use of the Inspector General of Intelligence and the Auditor General to make certain findings in terms of whether these intelligence services are following the rules of the game, so to speak. That's the first point. So it's positive. It's very positive because in the past, it hasn't happened. The second point is, in the report, we find a number of irregularities, which means that our intelligence services are not quite yet up to standard which we expect from them in a typical democracy.
What kind of irregularities would these be, Prof?
So in the past, you know, I mean, our viewers know that there was a high-level panel report, the so-called Mufamadi report. There was the Zondo Commission, and also the Sandy Africa report into the 2021 unrest. So we know more or less from all of these reports that intelligence in the past were politicized and used by factions in the ruling party to promote the one or the other, or to steal money, you know, and all sorts of nefarious activities. The attempt by the government to clean up all of this mess moved fairly rapidly within Parliament, again, with this committee and their colleagues, to de-establish the State Security Agency and to re-establish a domestic and a foreign service. And I think this is very important. It's a breakthrough. What now needs to happen is the rules of the game, the technical details of when you ask for money to undertake a mission abroad, or when you have to use resources to make sure that our security is intact, then you have to report. These are members of these services, including police, defense, and civilian intelligence. The findings of the report is that often these rules are not adhered to, and there is room for improvement.
But also, with that room for improvement, when we're looking at the past as well that you were speaking of, and how our intelligence tended to be a little bit compromised by politics, are we seeing the improvements that we're moving away from that direction?
That's a difficult judgment to make, Masa, because many of us are not directly involved in the affairs of intelligence, which, as we know, often happens behind the scenes. But let me put it like this. The public expects the security sector, our intelligence services, whether it's domestic or foreign or defense or police, crime intelligence, to protect us from harm as the public. And we are demanding from these services that they follow all the rules laid out in the Constitution and in new legislation. And what the Inspector General and the Auditor General found is that they are not doing exactly what is expected of them. So that is what I mean by room of improvement, for improvement. In fact, this is really important because as our listeners and viewers know, we live in a very uncertain world. In our region, there's conflict and troubles. And inside South Africa, we have high levels of crime and violence. And we have an election in a few days. You want your intelligence services to provide the security that the country needs. And if they don't follow the rules of the game, then they are compromised. And this is what the JSCI report is telling us. I think after the election with the new administration, we have to go back to intelligence and tackle the outstanding issues and make sure that we create a professional service that can follow the rules and of which we can be proud as the public.
Now, considering some of these irregularities as well, is this something that ordinary South Africans should be extremely concerned about when it comes to South Africa's intelligence, or is just something that they should note and be aware of?
You know, in my judgment, I think we should note this. There's been an enormous amount of hard work behind the scenes between the high-level panel report, the Zondo Commission report, and the report on the 2021 unrest. And now, where the demand is for SSA, for intelligence service, to adhere to the regulations and the requirements of the Public Service Administration Act. And I think they've tried their best to do that. Despite that, there are still issues relating to monies that are spent and resources that are used and not declared properly. In fact, there are some problems. We know, and they also relate to politicization still, unfortunately. And here I have to be a little bit negative. Crime intelligence does not enjoy the support and the confidence of the public at large, because we can see from a distance that politics are at play and that crime intelligence is not doing the work that we, for example, this morning in Durban, there was a huge problem in terms of bringing the whole city, the metro, to a standstill. The question that a normal member of public would ask is, did intelligence understand that this was going to happen? Did they anticipate this? And what actions were taken to prevent this from happening? It happened. The whole metro came to a standstill. And this is very worrying for those of us who remember the dynamics of 2021. We don't want a repeat of this. So I agree with you, Masa, that where there are lapses and problems in terms of accountability and oversight, they might lead to bigger problems. And it's really the challenge of the outgoing government now, but more so the incoming administration a week or 2 weeks from now, to make sure that the capacity of the security sector is used with a budget that we give them to protect the public from harm.
Professor Anthony, thank you so much for your insight and sharing your time with us this evening on News at Prime. That was Professor Anthony van Nieuwkerk, who's from the Thabo Mbeki School of International Affairs.